everybody, and welcome to a very special Valentine's episode of Noms.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes novel moms.
Before we get started, of course, I have to show you what I got in my P.O. box. I'm sorry I didn't see you guys last week. My husband was sick, but I'm here now. It's okay. A postcard from Richard in London that told me his favorite books are Alice in Wonderland and The Color Purple, which I love as well, and would like to see a recipe for an American cookie. We could definitely do that. Then this card from Jill, who looks like it's handmade, which I absolutely love this. And she talks about some gluten-free stuff, which I definitely do as much as I can every episode to include because I myself am gluten intolerant. She also mentions the farmer's market, which in an upcoming episode we're going to talk about that. And very much thank you for your card and your suggestions. And this letter I got a couple weeks ago from Allie, and I'm going to put her channel down below. She's an amazing musician and I adore her. But she's also trying to be a vegetarian right now. And so she had requested, she said, I have my request. Could you do some more vegetarian meals? I've been trying to switch to vegetarian. I've cut out all meat besides chicken. The reason I haven't cut out chicken yet is that I don't know what to eat instead. It's a lot easier to stop eating something when you have something to replace it with. So I am going to make something just for her, and hopefully something that you will enjoy no matter if you like meat or if you're trying to be vegetarian or vegan or whatever that is, because it's so simple and it's so good, and no matter what your diet is, this will fit in, I promise. And so what we're going to make today is we're going to make something that I think shows your love not just of yourself by treating yourself well with good food, but your love of your spouse or your significant other that you want to cook for, because it's such a great meal. We're going to make homemade potato gnocchi with pesto and portobello mushrooms, and we're also going to make a yummy dessert of homemade chocolate mousse. Holy cow. I'm going to tell you about Pablo Neruda. If you don't already know Pablo, you need to know Pablo. Pablo Neruda writes amazing poetry. His poetry is translated because he writes in his mother tongue. There's a movie called Il Postino, The Postman, and it's a fantastic movie about his life and about his poetry. And it just gets me just gooey inside because I just love him so much. But the cool thing about Pablo Neruda is he didn't just write love poetry towards people, but towards food, because it's just such a, it nourishes us and it gives us life. And one of my favorites is called The Lemon. And it says, while the hand holds the cut of the lemon, half a world on a trencher, the gold of the universe wells to your touch, a cup yellow with miracles, a breast and a nipple perfuming the earth, a flashing made fruitage, the diminutive fire of a planet. Hello. So let's get started on something that even Pablo would love. Now, one of the things that people who are trying to be vegetarian often think is they are not going to be able to get enough protein in their diet. And I read a whole bunch of stuff about this to prepare for today. And I've learned that every food has protein. There's 23 different proteins that you could possibly have. And most of those you can get just from your own body that makes those proteins. But the rest we get from food. And you don't have to get those proteins from meat. And we're going to start with dessert. And I think it's really important to remember that when you're cooking vegetarian, you want to make it simple, because the more things you try and add and muddy up, and really it's true about most cooking, the worse it's going to taste, and it's just going to taste heavy and just kind of, like I said, muddy. Everything kind of runs together. You want to taste every single ingredient. We're going to start with our chocolate mousse. Now, I'm going to start with a really good chocolate chip. I get Ghirardelli, the semi-sweet, because I don't like the super sweet. Dark chocolate would be amazing. I'm going to put about half a cup or so of chocolate chips in there. Chocolate chips, and I'm going to put them on top of a pot of boiling water. Have you ever heard of a double boiler? That's what that is, essentially. We don't want this chocolate on the direct heat, because it will burn, it will curdle, it will be kind of grainy and gross. Okay, we're going to melt that up over the boiling water. And I'm going to take out of my freezer, I have chilling about a third of a cup of heavy cream. It's got a little bit icy around the corner, which, we don't want it to freeze. You just want it to be really cold. And I'm going to pour it into a bowl. What we're going to do with this heavy cream is we're going to actually whip air into it. by using our hand mixer. And what that's going to do is basically create homemade whipped cream. So this is a recipe that you could use to put on top of your sundaes, on top of your apple pie, whatever you want. You could add a little vanilla in there, a little other flavoring, and have some flavored whipped cream. We're just going to whip some air into it until I start to see that it's almost like a foam consistency. I could probably make this a little bit stiffer, but I like it right there. It's creamy and ready to go. Alright, and while that's melting, I'm also going to get out my secret ingredient. And that is amaretto liqueur. You could really use just about any alcohol. You just don't want to use a ton of it because it's going to change the chemistry of the mousse. But once my chocolate is ready here, take the chocolate off the heat now that it's all melted. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit because if we add it right away to the super cold cream, it's going to get grainy and add these like little chunks of chocolate, which we want to fully incorporate into the cream. So I'm going to take a little shot glass of the amaretto. I'm going to add that into my cream. You could really use a lot of different kinds of things. You could use, if you don't want alcohol, you could add just a little shot of coffee, of really good espresso or coffee. You'll have like a mocha. You could do some kind of fruit liqueur, like a strawberry liqueur. Okay, now I'm going to add in my chocolate. Scoop it all in there. And then we're going to take a spatula and start folding it in. All the chocolate. Stir it. Fold it in. Turn it over, fold it in. And obviously you could put more chocolate in it if you wanted a greater ratio, if you want it to be a darker, richer mousse. You just gotta be careful because people get a little excited about the alcohol. Ooh, I want to put 2 shots. It will overwhelm your dessert. You really want to be able to taste it, but not, get schnockered. Valentine's, you shouldn't be schnockered on Valentine's. You should be gazing lovingly into the eyes of your significant other. Okay, so I'm going to take a pretty glass, take my mousse, and drizzle it in there. Try not to get any on the edges. Make it look pretty. Now I'm just going to put this in the refrigerator and let it get nice and cold, and it'll increase the creaminess and the thickness of the texture. So this will be ready to go by the time dinner's ready. Alrighty, now we're going to make our gnocchi. The gnocchi is a very simple, like little pillows of potato pasta that you can put with anything you want, any kind of sauce. But again, the best thing about gnocchi and about Italian cooking, about vegetarian eating, is eating really simple things that don't come out of a package. You could very well go buy your own gnocchi from the freezer section of your grocery store, but this way you know exactly what goes into it, and it's so good. Okay, the first thing we need to do is start our potato. I'm just going to make 1 small potato, and this seems like a really tiny little potato, but it will make a good serving of this gnocchi pasta. So what you want to do is you want to take your potato, leave it whole, and clean it. Scrub all the dirt off of it, and you're going to put it in a pot of water so that the water completely covers the potato so that it cooks all the way around. And some people are like, well, can't you cut them up and dice them or skin them? Any exposure of the inside of the potato to the water is going to make it a little bit mushier and watery. So we want to keep it whole to kind of keep the little inside nugget safe of potato. So I'm just going to put this potato in a pot of water, and I want to make sure the water covers the whole potato. Now, depending on the size of your potato, this potato will probably need to cook about 10-15 minutes, but I want to make sure it's cooked all the way through. While our potato's cooking, we can start making the sauce or the pesto that's going to be with our pasta. It's going to be so delicious. If you've never had pesto, it's so good. And again, you can buy this in a jar at the grocery store, but this way you know exactly what goes in it. So here's what you need. I'm going to use my little mini food processor, but you could definitely use any kind of little blender or just do it by hand. It's fine. But I'm going to take some basil. I have some fresh basil. And I don't want to chop it up super because I want to allow my food processor to do the work. So I'm just going to give it a little chop. And Just give it a little rough chop. Stick that in my little food processor. I have 1 tablespoon of olive oil, which I'm going to pour in there. I'm going to take, it's all a matter of your own taste, how much garlic you want. I'm probably going to put 2 cloves of garlic in here, which is probably a lot. So if you want to put like 1 in there and see how you feel, or put a half of 1 if you know that you're kind of, not big on a lot of garlic. And then you could always add more. And just chop off the little end, stick it in my food processor. And the last thing I'm going to add is 1/3 of a cup of fresh Parmesan cheese. And all I do is I get the wedge. You can get it pre-grated, and that's fine. But it's kind of fun, and it keeps longer if you have it like this. And a lot of people rely on those shredded cheeses that you get in the bags, like hanging in the cheese aisle. And those are a fine substitution for fresh cheese. But what a lot of people don't know is they add stuff to the cheese so that the cheese doesn't stick together. And they put this chemical, and they're basically coating your cheese with bleh. So getting a nice fresh cheese like this, it's not going to keep as long, but it's going to be so much better for you. So I just take my little tiny microplane or my little grater, and I grate the cheese. And I get this beautiful, yummy, fresh Parmesan cheese. Mix it up. Push it down a little bit. Give it another quick mix here. That's it. I have this beautiful fresh pesto. You can grind it up as finely as you want. You could add more olive oil if that's what you want. Add more basil. If you don't like basil, you can use oregano. You can. Some people like to add pine nuts. I personally don't like pine nuts in there, but you could also sprinkle the nuts on top. So it's a matter of what you like. This is a really simple, easy topping for our pasta. It's going to be so delicious. So I'm going to set that aside. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our mushrooms ready. And I bought a very simple portobello mushroom. You can use whatever mushrooms you like. I like the portobello because it does have like a meaty texture to it, and it's filling. And if you're transitioning from eating meat to not eating meat, it kind of helps ease the transition a little bit because you feel like you're still getting some of that good meaty flavor. All you want to do to clean the mushroom is take a wet paper towel and just give it a nice bath, a little sponge bath on top here. You're going to get off any of the dirt, fungus. It is fungus, but you want to get off the bad fungus. Alright. And I'm going to snap off the stem. I'm going to use my toaster oven. If you have a toaster, a little door, and it's got bake and broil and all that stuff on there, you can use that for so many things. A lot of people say, oh, I can't cook for myself. I don't want to heat up the house with the oven. This is a very cost-efficient way to cook. And it's easy because it's like no cleanup, but I'm not heating up a house. And I'm also not dirtying a big pan. All I need is my mushroom and my toaster pan. I'm going to take my mushroom. I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil on there. Just kind of work it in. I'm going to take a little bit of garlic powder and kind of work that in with my olive oil. A lot of people think these are super expensive. I got this individual piece of mushroom for 48 cents. It was in the bulk section. Done. Okay, I'm going to put it in my toaster oven on broil. And I'm just going to let it go, and I'm just going to check. You don't want it to burn. So I'm going to check on that every so often. So my potato's been boiling for about 15 minutes. I'm going to take it out of the boiling water, and I'm just going to scrape off with a knife. I'm going to scrape off the skin. Okay, I'm going to let my potato cool for a minute so that I can work with it. We're actually using the same pot and the same water for everything we're making. We used it to boil as a double boiler for the chocolate. We used it to boil the potato, and we're going to use it to boil and cook the pasta. How easy is that? While my potato is cooling, I'm going to take my mushroom out of the oven. Now, we're going to take our potato. Now, you could take this potato and actually just like mash it up with a fork, but we want it to be a little bit more pliable. We don't want it to be like just completely smashed. So I'm going to take my cooked potato and I'm going to run it over a grater. If you have a ricer, a potato ricer, that would work great too. Okay, so I've got my grated potato. Add 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm just going to mix that up, incorporate the flour into the potato. I have this dough. The dough or the salt incorporated in there. If you wanted to make flavored gnocchi, you could add whatever other spices you like. Now, I don't know if you ever used Play-Doh as a child, but basically you're going to roll the potato out, or your potato dough. Cut it in half if it's too much to roll at once. And we're going to roll it into a long snake, probably about 1/2 inch thick. I don't want them to be too big because I want the sauce and everything to be really balanced. You're going to cut it into your little pillows. Cut, cut, little potato pillows. What we need to do is put grooves into each little piece of gnocchi so that it'll cook faster and so that it'll hold the sauce better. You're going to put it on the back of your fork, take your thumb, and kind of like if you've ever been fingerprinted, don't tell me why you've been fingerprinted, I probably don't want to know. Send me a private message, maybe I do. Okay, you're going to put it on the back of the fork. Start with this part of your thumb and roll and push it forward so that it comes off, and then your little individual gnocchi should be like a little C shape and have the marks on the back. Press and roll. That was one little light bulb, tiny little potato, and I've already got, almost a dozen pieces of gnocchi, and I still have a lot more. So one little potato will go a long way. They're going to cook pretty quickly. They're going to cook in about 2 minutes. You're going to drop them into some boiling water and put a little bit of salt in the water. So let that come up to a boil. And once they get in there, they will drop to the bottom, and when they float, they're done. It's very simple. Into my boiling water. You don't want to add too much at once because if you add too many, it'll bring down the temperature of the water and they won't boil. I'm going to get everything else ready so that we can eat when we're all done. Take my portobello mushroom that came out of the toaster oven and I'm just going to slice it. Just taking my dumplings, draining them out of the water and putting them in a little bowl. I made enough pesto for probably an army here. So I'm just going to take probably about a tablespoon of my pesto, put it in with my little gnocchi. I'm just going to kind of toss them. Okay. Slide those onto my dish. Take my beautiful portobello mushrooms. You can make like a little fun design on there. Maybe make a heart. Oh. My dessert out of the fridge. See, it's got a nice stiff consistency. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lemon and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a squeeze on top of my pasta. First I'm going to try the mushroom. So good. It does have that meaty texture, really bold flavor. It tastes fantastic, and I put that garlic on top so it gives a little bit extra of a kick, of spice. Oh, the gnocchi is so good, and it holds that beautiful sauce with it. It's delicious. Simple, simple, simple ingredients make something that looks just and tastes fantastic. And now for the dessert. This is our amaretto chocolate mousse. That's pretty good. It's creamy, it's chocolatey, but you get a little punch of that alcohol that just kind of comes out as soon as it hits the back of your palate. It's so delicious and creamy and good. And you made it with only 3 ingredients. Whole meal is vegetarian, it's not bad for you, and it's easy to make, and it's delicious. It's simple ingredients that make wonderful food. So I'm going to finish my gnocchi and my yummy mousse over here, and I'm going to go tell my husband Happy Valentine's Valentine's Day. You go read some Pablo Neruda and let me know how you like him. And maybe even tell me below who your favorite love poets are. And have a great Valentine's Day. Love yourself by making great food. And love others by sharing it with them. See you next time on Noms.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's